Krauthammer. Well, we have been struggling all day to try to understand the NSA story, how new it is, if it's new, if it's an expansion from the Bush program that was started in 2006. And then late today, I mean, just literally in the last half hour, we have learned about a new program, the Washington Post reporting that the Obama administration also has a program called Prism. And I'm going to leave it to Steve Hayes to explain what Prism is. Go ahead, Steve.
Well, Prism appears to be, according to the Washington Post story, which I think is a fascinating read, appears to be a program that taps into 9 internet providers, broadly understood, and if I read the story correctly, seeks to be a content collection and then analysis program, which is what makes it different in some respects from the program, the NSA program that had been discussed all day concerning Verizon and these other companies. Prism, as I understand it, taps into these, allows the NSA to see into your internet activity and what exactly it is you are doing. Whereas the Verizon program...
Let me just read here. Extracting audio, video, photographs, emails, documents, and collection logs. Now, it doesn't explicitly say content, but it certainly seems headed in that direction.
It certainly implies that what's happening in this collection program, this program is they have access to content. They can look for terrorists, presumably, by assessing content and seeing patterns in content. What is different about the NSA program, the Verizon program, is it was basically gathering metadata, gathering 3 months worth of data about phone calls, phone numbers,
this number called that number,
billing records in effect, duration of calls and whatnot, and then allowing, using computers to go through and search for patterns in that metadata. So they weren't actually going into the content; they weren't listening to the calls.
And apparently, also, if there was a red flag that was raised, then you had to go back to the FISA court to get permission to go into who that was, who was contacting whom. But when you take all of this together, and we don't know what we don't know about Prism, we literally just found this out in the last half hour or so. Are you troubled by it? Does it seem to be an expansion on what George W. Bush was doing?
Well, I would say the Prism program sounds certainly much more invasive than the NSA program. I think if you look at the NSA program to talk about what we actually do know or think we know, it's a program that collected this metadata and then allowed the government to sift through it in such a way that it sought to identify patterns and identify terrorists to go after them, in effect. And in that sense, it's not much different substantively than what the Bush administration was doing.
The reaction to this has been fascinating today because it has crossed party lines. Al Gore tweeted this, and let's put it up on the screen. Is it just me, or is secret blanket surveillance obscenely outrageous? On the other hand, you had Senators Dianne Feinstein and Saxby Chambliss, the top Democrat and Republican, respectively, on Senate Intelligence, when they were talking now just about the NSA program, called that program nothing new and, quote, briefed to Congress for years. So now we don't have a reaction yet to Prism because, as I say, this just broke, but you had some Democrats upset, some Republicans supporting the president, and vice versa.
Well, but I think the left is being consistent. They didn't like it under Bush. They don't like it now. So that's not really that surprising. I'll be consistent as well. I didn't have a problem with it under Bush, and I don't have a problem with it now, as long as it is done through the FISA court, which was candidate Obama's position, and that there has to be some oversight. It can't just be done without any kind of oversight. Now, as for Gore's complaint, blanket surveillance, well, what other kind of surveillance really do you expect them to do? They don't necessarily know who the terrorists are. That's why they do the data mining to go through to find patterns, and that, and these are machines that are doing the data mining. So it's kind of overstating, I think, what the situation is versus people actually spying specifically on your phone calls.
The Obama White House has been aggressively defending the practice today. But back when he was Senator Obama, then Senator Obama, Barack Obama, took a different view of all of this. Take a look at some tape we found.
When I'm president, one of the first things I'm going to do is call in my attorney general and say to him or her, I want you to review every executive order that's been issued by George Bush, whether it relates to warrantless wiretaps or detaining people or reading emails or whatever it is, I want you to go through every single one of them, and if they are unconstitutional, if they're encroaching on civil liberties unnecessarily, we are going to overturn them.
Interesting. Charles, what's your take on the overall programs as we've learned about them so far, and particularly on Prism, our information somewhat sketchy, and also Senator Obama, Barack Obama's apparent change of heart?
Well, he's had a lot of those, and there's been a lot of hypocrisy, and I'm not surprised that he becomes commander-in-chief, and they tell him about the threats out there, and his hair stands on end, that he says, well, perhaps Bush was on the right track here. So I'm not surprised. It's good for the country that a conservative does it, and then a liberal, and the people understand this is required. I'm not at all upset by what was revealed today about the phone program. It is meta information, and what you get, A, you have to go to a judge. B, you do it's sifted by a computer looking for patterns. It's data mining. If it finds a pattern, it has to go see a judge again and look into it individually. And that, I think, is reasonable. The Prism sounds a lot different because it sounds as if, and we're not sure it involves content. I also think that the word Prism has a Bond connotation. You know, it's the villain in the lair on the island is working on the Prism program. So it has a kind of a spooky tone.
All right. We don't like spooky.
There's a second program called Blarney, and I'm not making it up. I'm not making it up. It's a twin of Prism. Yes, I think it's very interesting as literature.
All right. We have to take a break.